separatists. They joined Al-Qaeda, they joined the Free Syrian Army, all of these different ones. And one of the things that they knew when they arrived is that they were lawfully entitled to murder the husbands. I'm not talking about military people, I'm talking about civilian. They could murder the husbands, they could kill them, and then they could possess and own their wives and their children. And they serious negotiations. At that point, Putin, seeing that that armed Ukrainians with weapons to kill Russian troops were literally on their borders, decided he had to strike first. Now you could see that this was not some pre-planned attack. This was not like Hitler's attack into Poland, where the standard rule of thumb is that you always have a 3-to-1 advantage when you are the attacker. You have to mass 3 times as many tanks and artillery and planes and men. As the other side has. In fact, when Russia went in, they went in sort of with what they had, what they could cobble together on short notice, and they were outnumbered by the Ukrainian forces. The Ukrainian forces had about 250,000. The Russians had perhaps 160,000. So instead of having 3 times as many, they actually had fewer troops than the but those missiles are so ultra sensitive and so dangerous to our ships that I don't think that NATO would trust the missiles to Ukrainians or to anybody else. I think they have to be maintained under NATO control and operation. So I think that it was probably NATO forces that actually sunk the Moskva. Dangerous to America.
Helga Zeppler-Rouge and the Schiller Institute have a petition, and we held a conference on April 9th on the same theme, being that the only way to really stop this descent into hell and into potential nuclear holocaust is new Peace of Westphalia. In this case, an international conference to secure a new security architecture and a new development architecture, the right to development for all countries. And like the Peace of Westphalia, one in which
that the American people really don't have the perception of the need for anything of that sort. It's going to be different. Here's something that's interesting that has happened. Here in this country, you would think the entire world is against Russia. It's not. In fact, there are major countries of the world that lean towards Russia in this war, starting with China, but then Brazil. You've got South Africa, Saudi Arabia, a wide array of countries, tremendous India, tremendous, tremendously supportive of Russia, joyously announced that the city was liberated 4 days after the Ukrainian army had moved in, and their special, their propaganda arm of the Ukrainian military were there. Not a whisper. And yet the proof is undeniable. We had another clip where there was a POW gathering point where the Ukrainians would bring POWs to a central point for processing. To the wars that we fought when we invaded Iraq, the shock and awe. We destroyed virtually everything in Iraq, everything of significance. We bombed military and civilian targets without much discrimination. The coalition flew 100,000 sorties in 42 days. You compare that to the Russians, who have only flown 8,000 sorties in about the same period of time. 100,000 American bombs versus 8,000. Not
have described the horror that's already taking place. And considering that we can't wait for a nuclear war to provoke a new piece of Westphalia. And I would suggest that what you've described is already horrific enough. And when combined with the hyperinflationary breakdown now sweeping the Western world, which everybody...
If you look at Russia, the Russian troops that went into battle in Ukraine, for the most part, had never experienced combat. This is a peacetime army. Russia doesn't fight overseas wars. Syria is the only significant overseas engagement that they have had. You compare that with the United States, where, literally speaking, if a soldier retires today after a 30-year career in the military, he will not have served a single day when the United States was at peace.